Do we have a great show for you today? But first, do not miss out on this year's biggest giveaway. That's right. For the first time ever on the Larry Elder Show for Epoch Times, I'm hosting, fell off. I'm hosting a holiday giveaway. But make no mistake, these are not just any gifts. They are hand-prepared and signed by me, yours truly, Larry Elder. You definitely don't want to miss the chance. Just go to winlarry.com and enter the giveaways right now. On December 8th, I will announce 3 winners, 3, live on the Larry Elder Show on Epoch TV. I cannot wait to send you these gifts. Again, go to winlarry.com to enter the giveaway right now. Massive protests in China over its COVID lockdown policy. Did Donald Trump dine with an anti-Semite and a Holocaust denier? Later on in the show, we talk with Senator Marsha Blackburn about Elon Musk versus Apple and the Trump effect on the midterms. But first, be sure to hit that like button because I know you like my show. And make sure you hit subscribe. And be sure to click on the description below so that you get on our mailing list. Because believe it or not, we've been demonetized by YouTube. I'm not quite sure why. Maybe it was something I said. But in order not to miss any of our videos, make sure you click on the description below. Also, as I mentioned, we've been demonetized. If you want to make a donation, throw a little something in the tip jar, feel free to do it. China is facing mass street protests not seen since Tiananmen Square back in 1989.
密接、次密接以及这些有可能感染的人，这个就够了。我们不需要去进行全小区的一个大型的这种筛查，我们不需要这种大清洗。
And a BBC reporter has been arrested.
Barry, call the consulate now.
The Biden administration has said very little.
What is the White House's message, the president's message to people in China who are peacefully protesting COVID lockdowns there? And then did the topic of China's zero COVID policy come up in the president's bilateral meeting with President Xi when they met in Indonesia a couple weeks ago?
They did talk about COVID and the effect that the pandemic had around the world. Clearly that came up inside the conversation. I don't know if specifically the zero COVID policy was an issue of discussion, but certainly COVID was on the agenda, as you might expect that it would be. And our message to peaceful protesters around the world is the same and consistent. People should be allowed the right to assemble and to peacefully protest policies or laws or dictates that they take issue with.
Does the White House support their effort to sort of regain personal freedoms in light of these lockdowns?
The White House supports the right of peaceful protest.
That's it? No, we shall overcome? No justice, no peace? That's it? Meanwhile, protesters in Iran means the republic, in quotes, is in more jeopardy than at any time since its founding in 1979. Iranian soccer players even protested at the World Cup by refusing to sing its country's national anthem. Now, unlike when Colin Kaepernick refused to honor the U.S. national anthem, they risked their lives and the lives of their family, and they won't likely get multi-million-dollar deals with Nike.
Iran's World Cup team refused to sing their national anthem during the first World Cup appearance today against England. It's a gesture widely seen as a pledge of support for anti-government protests gripping the country. Team Melli is caught between young supporters that back protests against Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei in Iran. As his warning, the team should not, quote, disrespect the country. The team faced England today in their first match.
As mentioned, this is at tremendous risk to them and to their families, as is the people protesting in the streets of Iran, risking their own lives and the lives of their families.
Well, nothing will happen until they get home, but it's likely something will happen to them for sure. That kind of a public display is an embarrassment to the regime. Look at the Olympics. Emotions run high. Athletes come to the Olympics, certainly. They've been working for years to reach that pinnacle. And at times, political statements are made, given what's happening in their country or other people's countries. And we've seen this play out. I certainly admire the guts of that team to do that, knowing what's happening at home. And we're over 2 months now with the people in the streets really demonstrating against the regime because they want human dignity and personal freedoms and yearning for democracy. And they're willing to risk their lives to do it. Thousands have been killed, and tens of thousands are now in jail as a result of it. And the protests are still going on.
Now that's Iran. Let's turn to Ukraine. Ukraine has retaken ground in Putin's war, and there are mass protests in Russia.
А ще разочок можна?
Слава Україні!
Да,
Дякуємо вам!
героям слава!
Дякуємо вам!
Да, і вам дякую. Така у нас поход.
Коля! Сокер!
Парни,
Високополье свободно!
да, 4 вересня.
China, Iran, Ukraine. These are, to say the least, positive developments. Joy to the world. Now, joining me to talk about this, Kurt Schlichter is a conservative lawyer, retired Army colonel, officer for over 28 years, and senior writer with townhall.com. Kurt, thank you so much for joining me. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Larry.
Kurt, let's talk China first. Mass protests, as you know, because of the lockdowns, and apparently there was a fire. 10 people died, stuck in an apartment, and the feeling is that but for the lockdowns, those 10 people would not have died. This is a huge, huge risk, obviously, to the demonstrators because unlike in America, they don't give you a ticket and let you out after you protest the government.
No, in fact, they don't, Larry. And it wasn't just they were locked down into the houses. They were actually locked into them. The people burned alive because the Chinese Communist government decided to lock people into their homes because of a glorified cold. Now, the Communist Chinese have kind of made a deal with the Chinese people. And Chinese people are great people, a magnificent history. They've been abused in the past. They're very nationalistic, very sensitive to foreign interference. But they made a deal with the communists. The communists said, we will give you something like capitalism, which will make you rich, but you're going to give us your freedom. And they accepted that deal. And now the communist masters are not able to keep their part of the bargain. China has economic problems that are exponentially worse because of COVID. Now the Chinese people who have been exposed to freedom overseas, because many of them come and are educated here, many of them now can visit, and they're very aware of this kind of unspoken deal. And the Chinese communists aren't keeping their part of it. So the people are saying things that are beautiful and inspirational. We want our freedom. One of them even said, give me liberty or give me death.
Right.
I mean, wow.
Kurt, what is the Biden administration saying about this? Seems to me the silence has been deafening.
The silence has been deafening. And let's be really clear. Because you don't want to make this situation a foreigners telling the Chinese how to be situation. This has got to come from the Chinese people because for centuries, foreigners ran most of China. Foreigners abused China. Right. We all know about the Opium Wars and all the other stuff. And China's very, very sensitive about that and about foreign influence. So it was interesting to see in some of the clips, you saw people asking, was it foreigners who locked us in our houses? Was it foreigners who won't let us work? Because that's the government's thing. Right. So I understand that the Biden administration, if it was competent, would be walking a very thin line to not make this about America. It has to be about the Chinese. But what it's done now is absolutely nothing. And that is not an aberration. It's doing absolutely nothing about Iran. It's doing absolutely nothing about the communist dictatorship in Venezuela, except it just gave American companies the permission to go drill oil there while it won't let American workers do it at home.